This is we are entering a new kind of, what's the right word? It's neo-feudalistic in a sense. There's a noble class. There's the modern landed gentry, and that is to say a few things. We were just talking about, you can't call YouTube, you can't call Twitter, you can't call Google. Okay, well, I can. Because this is the way the society is starting to function, that you have followers, you have notoriety, then all of a sudden you find out that people are calling you and you have email addresses and they're here for you all of a sudden. You find out that if you get bad service on an airline and you've got 10,000 followers, well, you might get a response, but what's that? You got 100,000 followers? Oh, now you're flying first class and they're apologizing. You got 1 million followers and now you're on that global concierge list. Mm-hmm. This is where we're going. So for me, or actually for other people, I get messages from people and they say, hey, yo, Tim, I had a video get, demonetized. Do you have any idea what I can do to get it fixed? And I'm like, honestly, I don't. You can try tweeting at, Team YouTube. They try to get things sorted. And fairly effective for a lot of people, interestingly. Social media is an easy way to connect. So now we know their handle and we can send them a message and they can see it. And some of these channels are moderately large. When I get demonetized, I hit up Google. I send an email right away and they say, sorry about that. No problem. You got your sorted right away. Sometimes they go like, we're not giving you this one for this or that reason. When the Alex Jones episode got taken down. So here's the first thing. I hit up Google and I said, are there any people that we have that are outright no-nos for YouTube? Like you would ban us for simply having? I said, no. And I was like, so, here are the people we would like to have on the show. And they're like, absolutely no problem. And then I said, okay. And then they take the episode down and I ask them why. And they say, we won't tell you. So I'm like, so I have no idea we're going to take it down. So it's not
this is what I'm talking about, by the way.
Right. But I'm actually talking to them on the phone. I'm on the phone saying, you can't even tell me what we did. And they're like, we don't know because the people who chose this were higher up than we are. So it's like, it's almost like this neo-feudalist thing where they are creating classes of people. The average person, you can have your account, maybe will ban you. A lot of the accounts that are getting banned and getting censored are small. And this is why you don't see it in the media. The left likes to say cancel culture isn't real because these celebrities still are rich or something. But what they don't realize is that 90% of those who got suspended and deleted for a political opinion were someone with 50 followers or 100 followers. And now they're IP banned, they can't get back on the service, and they're like, okay, whatever, I guess. So the lower class individuals, in terms of the social hierarchy, the social credit score, whatever they're building, will have no access to Facebook, will have no one to message, will simply say, please, and they'll say, bug off, we don't care. And then the people who have prominence are given access. It's a combination of they'll look for you to make sure they're worried about your social influence, but also when it comes to Facebook, I know people. Like I know people in the news industry and they say, here's the email you need, Tim, don't worry about it. Regular people don't have that. So now we're seeing this weird world where people are desperate to have followers because it makes them feel like they can finally get access to systems and be treated fairly.
Yeah, I will say also, when I mentioned coming from like the sales or trading floor space, there are a whole variety of platforms. I mean, back in the day, it was Manta, Lead 411, so on. Instant Checkmate works well now, where you can pull up the contacts for the executives at most companies, including some of the social companies. Like when we got genuinely irritated at Twitter, I started doing that. So, you can look at IPO filings. You can look at who the listed executives online are. I mean, it's possible to contact. At one point, I called Mark Cuban during a job at the company Marcus Evans. Like, all that stuff's easily available. Like, you can, if you do get one number, you can call into the company and just sort of dial off. 7's the mailroom. I had this number on a corporate reference for Jack Dorsey. Look, I don't have a lot of time to waste here. Can you tell me what his number is? Don't need to sell a secretary's fine, whatever. And it works. Most of the people I've known that have a similar financial background haven't had a lot of issues with these companies. But of course, to some extent, this is just saying what you're saying. Like, yeah, you're a stockbroker for 10 years. You can probably get in touch with them too. Again, there are two levels here. One, it's generally not that hard to break the rules or the law and not get caught. At the most basic level, like if you're IP banned, which is a real thing, like you can just download Tor and your IP will be Fiji. If you have 50 followers on Twitter, it wouldn't be hard to get back on Twitter and be a troll, frankly. But again, the question is, should you have to do that? I'd prefer to see, when we talk about politicians potentially regulating these brands or sparring back and forth with them, one thing that I would like to see is just a common sense demand that these rules be illustrated. What does this mean? What is hate speech? What do you mean you can't tell me who my prohibited guests are? This happens all the time.
Well, there's no prohibited guests, but they won't tell me what was said that got the video flag taken out. We can only make assumptions about what we think was actually said. And so when I said to them, listen, we'll make clips from the show and we'll remove whatever you said was against the rules, and they said, we won't tell you. And I'm like, well, what do you want me to do?
You got to keep in mind they all have the ability to ban anyone at any time, as per their terms. Every social media site has that in their terms. And
That's got to change. It's time for Will Chamberlain's got it. He's a smart fella.
Yes.
He knows.
when
Dave got suspended, he said Dave should go into a courtroom, get an injunction, get his account turned right on.
I think you're going to see people starting to do that. It's the same thing as there was an entire genre of legal cases in the 80s and 90s, as you guys probably know, where people started talking about non-traditional property, like the right to receive welfare benefits if welfare happened to be legal in their state. And it's the same thing here. Like, do you have some right not to have, what is Dave at, 3-4 million followers and your financial livelihood taken away on a whim? I'd be interested in seeing what a judge says about that. I mean, there has to be some element of contracting there. I mean, has he entered into an advertising deal with YouTube or Twitter? Has he ever made them $1? Because then, I mean, you have, what is it, offer, acceptance, consideration? I mean,
Dave just launched a book, and they suspended him. I believe it was when his book, around the same time his book is coming out.
Okay.
I'll say straight up, if this was the day his book was coming out, they suspended his account, that he should take the first hour of sales as soon as he was able to promote on Twitter, calculate his losses based on the 12 hours, and then say those are the damages. Because he would have been able to say, hey, my pre-order is available now. Here's my new book. Tweet. They suspended him, and he didn't violate any rules. They claimed he did. And not only that, I think Dave should file a defamation suit because they claimed that he put out medical misinformation, but Dave was citing the Washington Post and I think it was Click Orlando. I'm not sure what the other site he meant. CNN. It was CNN and Washington Post. And he's like, what did I posted these articles, like it was a statement based on this. They claimed it was misinformation, in which case that's a false statement of fact. So he should at least try to sue. And the damages are that his new book is coming out and they're shutting down his means for promotion. This is a platform where people pay to get access to share information. So if Dave has built up that access, which creates the content which drives advertisement to the platform, I think it's time people start firing off these lawsuits saying, you can't do this.
But they're allowed to ban anyone at any time. He signed that terms of service when he made an account.
But what you don't understand is I'm arguing that has to change, and it changes with suing. So precedent will be set. For instance, Twitter defamed Dave Rubin. See, one of the problems they have is that they could have just said, no reason, we banned him for fun.
And they may start.
Maybe
didn't.
They
should.
They've done it to other people. They've suspended people and put no reason at all. It's just like, you've been suspended for blank. With Dave, it was misinformation. I believe it was, I don't want to get sued either, but I believe it was misinformation. I could be wrong. And Dave could say that's just factually not true. James O'Keefe is suing. Specifically because they claimed...
Good, I'm not surprised by that.
Right, he was... he's the master of it. They said he was operating multiple accounts, so he said, that's fake, that's a lie, it's a false statement of fact, and I'm going to sue you. And that was a big mistake, because now he can go for discovery and get internal communications on what they've said about him and his organization. So Dave should sue.
Yeah, the one question, by the way, in terms of your point, I think it's a good one when you say, well, they're saying that they can get rid of you for the legal language would be any reason or no reason at all. So even if you sue and you prove that you were defamed, you might get some money damages, but they can still likely keep you off the site. I think the issue there is that what's called an unethical adhesion contract. Like, can you sign a deal with a company that is going to give you the chance to make tens of millions of dollars where they can take all of your money and all of your followers away at any time? Law school was a while ago, but I would have some real questions about whether you can. I would have some real questions about, now that these sites are growing into serious businesses, whether you can do some of this junior varsity crap. Like, for no reason given, remove someone from your platform permanently and take their entire follower count away. That sounds very questionable. I mean, that's going back to like the early days of Facebook when people had 100 friends.
Not only that, but there's an expectation based on the rules they set. So of course they say you can be terminated for any reason. We reserve that right. But there's still an expectation that these are the rules you have to follow, and so long as you follow them, you are within bounds of being on the platform. Dave broke no rules.
Yeah, but you don't need to break rules to get booted off those. They can just ban you at any moment.
Right. So the issue is it an unfair contract?
Definitely.
If I said to you, Ian, you can come here and do all this work and then have a great opportunity, and so long as you don't say a naughty word, you're fine. And then one day after you've been working here for a long time, I just kick you out the door. and you're like, but I didn't break any rules. It doesn't matter. It's my house.
Like a right to work state?
What I mean is, there are certain contracts that are unenforceable, right? So non-competes in many states. I don't know if you went to law school, you said?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Like non-competes are unenforceable in out of states, right? That's my understanding.
Yeah, so there are contractual terms that are generally not enforceable. An open non-compete clause extending beyond a certain short period of time often is. I'd have to look at the case law. But the issue here, I think, would be more what's called an adhesion contract, where if you sign a contract with a player like your camera company, when you look at the back of the box of a piece of tech equipment, that in the terms and conditions go on for 16 printed out pages in a couple situations I've seen, and at the end you check your X and you submit. If that contract were to include something like, if this piece of equipment breaks, you owe us $1,000, or something completely ridiculous, that wouldn't be enforceable, because it would be understood that that's nonsense that the person with more power put into the text of the deal. Like, that would be just viewed as very unsympathetic. And I don't know, I actually think your point's a really good point, but I think social media, my actual reaction is, come on, bro, it can't work that way. Like, even with me at like 40,000 plus maybe like 20,000 on different other platforms, like, I've sold, my books have made bestseller lists. Like, if you were just to say, okay, we're going to take these 60,000 people away and we're going to set up some kind of permanent ban so that I could, or you could easily, but the average citizen couldn't get back on the platform, that's just total BS. Like, it's you having the power position in the contract doing something that's probably illegal. So, like, I couldn't sign a contract with you, like Tim couldn't sign a contract with you that says, if you want to work here and be, say, a video engineer, I get to punch you in the face twice a day. Because it would be a manipulative use of power position.
I got a better example. I couldn't say, Ian, you can come work on the show, and to work on the show, you obviously have to be in the house, and I can evict you from the property without notice at any time. That's actually against the law, right? So when it comes, no, it literally is.
It is, because there's a separate law that regulates eviction in every state. Not to jump in, that's actually a solid point, and that actually kind of gets to the point here. Like, are there other laws, for example, that protect against, say, undue deprivation of income? Is a claim you might be able to bring. Like, if a company just says, like, any company could do this. Like, I just got a fairly new vehicle. Could Mercedes or BMW say something like, if you miss one payment on your car loan, or better yet, if you miss one maintenance trip for your vehicle, we take the vehicle back? Can you just say any kind of ridiculous thing in a contract when you're selling a product someone else really needs?
And not only that, but typically repossessions are forfeiture. So if you have a car and you don't pay your loan payment for 2 months, they may say, we're going to move to repossess the car because you're delinquent. Typically, it's not usually 2 months. You can actually just tell the repo guy, it's my car, you can't take it, I'm challenging this as a civil dispute, and they can't take it. Yep. Well, a lot of people don't know that, so the repo guy shows up and they go, okay, and the repo guy says, you got it. And that's the game they play. In fact, you can just call the police and say, I'm in a civil dispute, you can't take my property. And they'll say, that's right, you can't. So in this instance, I wonder if, you mentioned about undue deprivation of income. I think the eviction thing is an interesting point. There may be laws that people haven't looked at or realized that you're entering into an agreement that grants you some kind of access to a system. So it's almost like, at the very least, we created laws to protect tenants for a reason. And maybe we can view social media accounts as us as tenants on a platform. We are using it to run a business. Considering a lot of the economy is now digital, especially with the way YouTube does super chats and the way people run their business on these digital platforms, we are effectively tenants of these platforms, and we have a contractual agreement. But they can evict us without notice immediately. Hey man, when you have a business or a house, you at least get 30 days and you can file a suit to argue why they can't do this to you. Now Dave Rubin can be on this platform creating entertaining content and informative content that builds up an audience on the platform that makes them money, providing a service to them. And then without notice, without due process, they kick him off for a false reason and defame him in the process. Imagine if your landlord came to your house and you had a pizza shop and they put up a big sign saying this pizza shop puts Dookie in their pizza, and then called the cops, and the cops came and kicked you out.
Well, we got to remove defamation just for the argument's sake, because they can remove you for no reason. So, and right, I think that's worse.
I'm saying specifically in the case of Dave Rubin, equate it to if Dave was running his business in a physical location. He'd have legal protection.
One day they just evicted him without notice.
One day Dave walks to his pizza shop and he shows up and the building's empty and all of his stuff is out in the street soaking wet in the rain.
Or they would keep the stuff. I mean,
And
the
they
stuff
said-
you make at that in their job is YouTube's content. I mean, as far as I
Right.
know.
Yep.
The
They-
videos.
they can-
This is YouTube's video right now, right?
Or better yet, Dave walks one day to his pizza place to open up at, he's got to get there at 9 a.m. because they open up for the early lunch, and all of his equipment has been crushed and mutilated and destroyed, and it's a permanent destruction of everything he's built and everything of value, because Twitter followers and accounts do have a market value. It's been calculated by companies. Companies pay money for the equivalent of reach, and they say to him, the lease said we can do whatever we want. We have laws saying you can't do that for obvious reasons, because it's disruptive to the economy. As we're moving into a digital economy, how can we have that people build their business on YouTube? Mumkey Jones deserves a shout out whenever this happens. Mumkey broke no rules. Mumkey Jones had a channel. He had 300 something thousand subscribers. It was his business. It was his life. He dedicated years to building that business, and he broke no rules. He was given no warning, and everything was destroyed overnight. At the very least, I understand the argument. They say in their contract they can do it. Well, certainly there should be a law saying they can't, because it's undue deprivation and it's eviction without notice.
We need a Mumkey broke no rules shirt. That's a great phrase. Mumkey broke no rules.
He broke no
I don't
rules.
know anything about this guy, though. This is the first I've heard
Yeah,
the
I'm
story.
Googling him right now.
He made a lot of really edgy content, and he pushed the envelope in a way, but it was
Not much.
he didn't break the rules.
Yeah.
Those
He-
people
like-
are tough as an admin. Those people are tough to deal with when they
Right.
get around the rules. That's why we put in clauses. At mine's anyway, we can remove anything at any time,
But
because
is-
people would be so snaky with the rules to get the most disgusting stuff in front of people, in front of kids. It's crazy.
So I will say that it's arguable that the content he made was distasteful to a lot of people, but how about they just say, hey guy, this one video you made, we're going to take it down.
But then he did it over and over.
No,
and over.
they didn't do that. They banned him without even giving a single strike. One day, all of a sudden, his channel was just gone, and they banned his second channel, which was like anime reviews or something. It was brutal.
Wow.
It was brutal. I understand the strike system. I understand the warning system.
And if you see 3+ strikes at once, you ban the account upright because
Instantly.
they got 3 strikes.
Isn't this guy back on a bunch of edge social media as Simi and Jimmy and doing better?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Probably.
Yeah,
But
Monkey
it-
Jones, aka Simi and Jimmy.
Right.
The first hit is his Wikitubia fandom. There, people are loving this guy. From
He's a funny
base
guy.
to erased, my story is Mumpkey Jones. Mumpkey
He broke no
Jones,
rules.
IMDb.
So he had.
If Kong loses, I'm going to, let's say, end it all. Okay, I see the
yeah.
issues here.
A
I'm
little edgy.
finally leaking all of my DMs. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So he was making edgy content about an individual I'm not going to name, who's a despicable individual, and it didn't break any of their specified rules, and they didn't even just like, how about this? Here's an email. Hey, look, we understand, this is the content you produce. Here are the terms we set forward. We're asking you right now, don't do these things, otherwise we'll have to ban you. And he would have said yes. The same thing with Carl Benjamin. I said this when Patreon banned him. I was like, Patreon banned Carl without warning overnight because of something he said on a live stream like a year prior. And if they had just gone to him and said, hey, we saw that you were on a stream and you said these things, it causes problems for us because we're getting a lot of bad press. We'd appreciate it if you wouldn't do this. Carl would have been like, all right, I don't want to lose my Patreon, so, no problem. But they didn't. They just nuke his income instantly. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.